The Remarried Empress. This fantastic royal romance has captured the hearts of— we don't have time for this. My last recap was 12 minutes long. 12 minutes! That's as long as the actual series is. We can't waste any time. Watch my last recap if you're lost on anything, and let's go through everything that's happened in season 2 to get you up to date for the big wedding night. We don't have time for the intro. Last we left off, Navier Trovi, the Empress of the Eastern Empire, just got divorced by her ex-husband Sovieshu, the Emperor of the Eastern Empire, and while she loses her title, it doesn't last very long, as she quickly, and I mean seconds later, marries King Henry, King of the Western Kingdom, not Empire. Season 2 picks up right after they escape Sovieshu trying to keep them in the Eastern Empire because he sucks. Anyways, they arrive in the Western Kingdom to, let's just say, some slight hesitation. Immediately shown with Unim Kevel, captain of the Royal Guards, immediately calling Henry his king, too reckless, questioning why he put his life on the line for one woman, which is fair. Not only did the king go to an empire they're planning on going to war with and conquering, but he also married the old empress of said empire. But Navier, being the old empress, knows exactly what to do, and while she respects the customs of this culture, not being able to use the queen's chamber until after the wedding, she doesn't make herself look like a pushover, explaining that she's still the queen and deserves something more than a guest room, to which Krista Walton waltzes in. Krista is the old queen of the Western Kingdom. That was until Henry's brother died. Anyways, she comes in and offers the Queen Palace, a much better alternative to a guest room. Krista and Navier walk and talk, address some rumors, and get into an awkward interaction when a maid calls Krista their real queen, Navier establishing herself to be thoughtful and clever. Meanwhile, Krista's ladies in waiting want Krista to fight back, but she's a realist. She knows that Navier is the queen, and while she asks Navier to keep the same servants, Navier, rightfully so, explains that anyone that's close to her might have to be replaced. Meanwhile, Henry is also explaining to the royals that Navier is the new queen and must be treated as so no matter what others think. But this also leads to Navier telling Henry that she needs to fight her own battles sometimes. She also requests that the captain of the royal guard that was a bit rude to her, that his sister becomes one of Navier's lady-in-waiting. Meanwhile, Kosar, Navier's brother, is trying to stay out of trouble by making himself scarce. Meanwhile, Henry starts to plan his wedding. Also, he plans on declaring himself emperor, a difference that is something I totally know. Henry also orders that they restore mana to Evelai, that girl that lost her magic that Navier sponsors. I didn't realize they could do that, but whatever. Sovieshu is panicking that the woman he divorced in favor of his mistress left him, which is on brand for him. Also, he wants Rashta to stop socializing with Duke Urgi, since he's the one who helped Navier escape. Rashta misinterprets this as jealousy because she's not the brightest bulb. She doesn't want to stop hanging out with him either because he gives her good advice, talking about how to win over reporters and such. Navier and the captain of the Royal Guard's sister Rose meet, and Navier immediately asserts her dominance, asking Rose to pick out dresses so she can criticize what she wears, talking to journalists about the divorce and remarriage, giving a mix of the truth and just a little bit of hyperbole. Navier and Henry have dinner together. Rose also passes by and thinks they're in an amorous moment. Navier also questions if McKenna is the blue bird that was shot down. Also, if Queen is a person, as she doesn't know as Henry yet. Henry asks if it would be upsetting if Queen was a person, and Navier says it would be a little upsetting, and Henry is distraught, since he is Queen. He decides not to share that information yet. Evelai also receives a beautiful necklace from Henry. Navier also pieces together pretty easily that Henry is Queen, more in shock of how often she hugged and kissed Queen. Navier goes to visit her brother Kosar, to which she runs into Aprin Violet, another knight, someone who loves Kosar, but Kosar doesn't seem to be too fond of him. He's incredibly sweet but very oblivious, tagging along with Navier and also nominating his sister to be one of Navier's lady-in-waiting. I'm not sure that's how that works, but okay. Rose is against it since Master Violet doesn't have the reputation of being a noble woman. Instead, she's knighted, she carries around a spear, and doesn't even know how to do lady-in-waiting tasks, but she catches on very quickly. Navier is conflicted on making her the lady-in-waiting when she stumbles onto a fountain and sees Queen turn into Henry, without any clothes on, I might add. Yeah, I'm not showing that. Read the series if you want to see that. Anyway, Sovieshu gets mad that Navier becomes queen of the Western Kingdom. How dare she go to someone else after he divorces her? His revenge plan is to have an incredibly lavish wedding, also appoints Rashta's fake father as the Minister of State Affairs in preparation of making Rashta the Empress. Rashta's fake parents get sad about their lost child. They had 2 lost children and Rashta's pretended to be one of them. Rashta says that she'll help find her sister, though is weirdly upset about it. Rashta also thinks that Duke Urgi fell in love with her, which is funny. Navier is incredibly distracted with what happened with Henry, and on her way to meet Henry, she runs into Krista. Krista wants to plan their wedding, but both Navier and Henry decline. Navier feels bad for Krista, also tries to bring up the naked bird thing, but only ends up asking to invite Grand Duke Kaufman, mainly to re-establish diplomatic relations and international trade trade with Uppbeat. Henry thinks Navier is upset because she refuses to make eye contact. A small bit of drama between Navier and Krista happen. Meanwhile, Navier makes Masta her lady-in-waiting, also meets with McLennan to design her wedding dress. And speaking of wedding dresses, Sovieshu wants Rashta to wear a simple wedding dress. Rashta meets with two different journalists, one to win over the commoners, another to win over high society. Henry still thinks Navier is upset, and eventually admits that he is Queen, the bird, even turning into Queen to show her, and to win her over by being cute, but she's just thinking that he's naked, asking to meet in his room. But when he leaves as a bird, he leaves his clothes in her room, which leads to a brief misunderstanding with her ladies-in-waiting. Sovieshu reads a newspaper from the Western Kingdom that Navier heard that he told Rashta that he would divorce Navier. Speaking of Navier, the next day she stumbles into Kosar. He is blaming himself for his sister's divorce, but is thankful to Henry as he let Kosar participate in a knight's tour as a way to improve his reputation. Navier admits to Henry that she saw him au naturel, which is a tad awkward, but they quickly bounce back. Sovieshu sends a letter in secret to Navier to try to explain what he was planning, but Viscount Ledeshu finds out about the secret letter being sent, and he's quick to snitch on Sovieshu to Rashta, proposing an unholy alliance. Navier also learns some important figures in the Western Kingdom, including Duke Riverdy, someone aligned with Krista, and Miss Merleni, someone who's not. Navier, missing her friends, especially thinking about Duchess Tunya, someone now known as Lady Nian, after losing her Duchess title after her divorce, decides to reach out to them. She brings back the journalists who interviewed her before to publish an article saying that she's met some lovely people, but also misses her friends, calling out a couple people including Lady Nian. Henry misinterprets this as her being lonely. Rashta also stumbles onto some documents that Navier left behind for Rashta to support welfare projects and yada yada yada, even giving her some advice to not donate under her own name, to which she completely disregards when she finds some checks, because Navier knows nothing about politics. Meanwhile, Sovieshu asks to bring Evelyn to the capital since she's losing her magic to help her seek a better future for herself, to show Navier that he's, I don't know, that he cares maybe. Viscount Ledeshu tells Rashta this, she starts to panic a little. Henry also admits that their wedding will be lavish because he will turn the Western Kingdom into the Western Empire, making Navier the first ever Empress of the Western Empire. Navier meets with a journalist that's a little more opposed to her, questioning her true allegiance, but she's able to dodge and weave the question. We also get an interesting moment with Rashta's lady-in-waiting thinking that Rashta is upset at her. Speaking of ladies-in-waiting, Navier's old ladies-in-waiting make it to the Western Kingdom, and that's not all, as Lady Nian, also known as Duchess Tunya, also arrives. She's hanging out with Viscount Landre, if you know what I mean. Anyways, Navier wants Duchess Tunya's help to take control of high society. Meanwhile, the Transnational Order of Knights sets up camp outside the capital of the Western Kingdom. The TOK, also known as the Order of Shadows, which is super cool, is an order of knights that's managed by a bunch of different countries. They're powerful and they act freely for the good of Wold, the continent. I failed to mention that before. The reason a more secretive organization is showing themselves is because Viscount Landre, the same one who's hanging out with Duchess Tunya, is actually the leader of the 5th division of the Order of Shadows. And because Navier saved his life, he wants his division to be her personal guard, which is wild. Lady Krista is slowly losing her powers. Meanwhile, her ladies-in-waiting want her to fight back, but she's reasonable and wants to be friends. Meanwhile, a less reasonable Sovieshu's letter finally gets delivered to Navier, explaining his old plan, and she doesn't really reply because she doesn't really care, because why would she? Navier also eases Henry's mind about it. Meanwhile, the third person in love with Navier, Grand Duke Kaufman, goes to likely a professor at the Academy of Magic because his love potion is still in effect. The theories are A, since Kaufman made it, it's extra effective on him. B, mages have been losing their power, so magic is a little unstable and maybe can cause an effect like this. Or C, he's just in love with Navier. Look, I'm leaning towards C. Anyways, Kaufman gets invited to the Western Kingdom. Sovieshu also gets heated that Navier hasn't responded. He also finds out that Viscount Landre is the leader of that shadow organization thing. Sovieshu brings Duchess Tunya's ex-husband, asking her why he divorced her. My man should look in a mirror, to which Duke Tunya explains that Rashta told him that Duchess Tunya was cheating on him. Sovieshu weirdly continues to blame Duke Tunya for little to no reason, but this also helps him realize that Rashta can manipulate high society. To either get back at Navier or to make her jealous, he pushes up the wedding. Krista sends a bouquet of flowers to congratulate Navier, to which another bouquet is sent back. Henry sets up a date for the wedding. Yay! Unfortunately, Sovieshu invites him to his wedding. They both decide to go. Navier also invites Miss Merleni, the noble that wasn't sided with Krista, to hang out. Miss Merleni is willing to help Navier on the deal that she kicks Lady Krista out of the palace. Navier thinks about it, but before making her decision, she travels to the Eastern Empire for Sovieshu's wedding. During the trip, we hear that Kosar's more violent methods of dispensing justice are weirdly gaining him a good reputation in the Western Kingdom. After a moment between Navier and Henry in a carriage, they arrive at the Eastern Empire. Henry tries to win over his in-laws. Sovieshu wildly regrets his decision. Rashta tries to make herself look better by adding more jewels to her dress. Navier meets some other people she missed. Sovieshu tries to get a moment alone with Navier, but is denied, and it is great. Sovieshu and Rashta have their wedding. Rashta looks like a fool with too many gems on her dress. During the carriage parade thingy, Rashta is loved by commoners. Meanwhile, Navier is basically shunned. During the after party, Sovieshu asks Navier what her response was to his letter, and she says, "Ha, nope, get out of here." Navier also dances with Rashta when she donates money in her name, which Navier explicitly told her not to do. During their dance, Navier continues to just give good advice, which Rashta hates for some reason. Rashta falls down, lies, and says that Navier threatened her. Sovieshu's just not buying it anymore. Rashta gets real mad. Navier takes a walk and stumbles into Duke Urgi, who finds the exact same necklace that was given to Eveline. Sovieshu tries to talk to Navier, asking her to come back. Henry hears this but leaves before she says anything. Navier gives Henry a sweater to wear as queen when he visits as queen. They return home. The knights who went on the knight's tour also return. Lord Kosar is the most loved knight in the Western Kingdom, which is hilarious, even getting a bunch of love letters. Grand Duke Kaufman arrives in the Western Kingdom. Kaufman and Henry meet. Kaufman is also shown to be able to just read people's thoughts. Crazy. Anyway, Sovieshu gets their wedding invitation and is mad, obviously, and also finds out that the money Rashta donated was actually Navier's, but decides to hold off on saying anything. Rashta relishes being the Empress of the Eastern Empire, but haha, she doesn't get any gifts except from Duke Urgi. She of course blames Navier somehow. Navier and Krista meet. They basically say they don't want to fight, but Krista wants to keep some distance. Navier and Kaufman meet, but Kaufman is obviously so in love with Navier that he doesn't really want to say anything and doesn't say anything and just leaves upset at himself. But Krista's lady-in-waiting sees this as an opportunity to win over a foreign power. Rashta holds a little party and invites some nobles. It is real awkward, leading to a noble questioning if she's for the commoners. Why is she trying to win over the nobles right now? Rashta is upset at this comment. Duke Urgi explains that she had to pick a side. Also, Rashta basically puts all of her trust into Duke Urgi, which I imagine will blow up in her face later. Rashta also wants to manage the assets, whatever that means, to which she is basically denied. Anyways, it's wedding time, baby! Well, a week before, as foreign nobles start to arrive and Henry starts to welcome them as Navier gets some rest. Duchess Tunia has won over so many Western nobles, and Miss Merlani and Navier secretly agree to work together. Navier decides to take a stroll and runs into Kaufman. They talk very quickly about how he's still in love with her, but never goes over the line because I love him and he's a great person, and we end the season with Lady Krista bumping into Grand Duke Kaufman. And now, you are ready to get into season 3 of the Remarried Empress, and just in time for the big wedding night. So make sure you check out the Remarried Empress, updating every week on Webtoon.